Hi everybody, I'm Kirsten Hearn, a psychotherapist at Gaia Woods Psychotherapy, back with another video to share some info and useful tools in couples therapy. And this unit is called couples therapy, but it's really broadly how I work with all intimate partnerships, whether it's a monogamous couple, a throuple, an open couple, poly, if you're ace and partnered, if you're aromantic and partnered, really anyone that you're in an intimate partnership with. And this of course can involve sex and or romance or neither, but the common foundation of these relationships is intimacy. Now, one offering about the word intimacy I'd like to share that I remember learning in grad school, that's a beautiful way to frame and think about this word, is intimacy. Into me, see. Into me, see. And this concept involves trust, vulnerability, and authentic connection. So even if you're not in an intimate partnership with a partner or partners, you may have a very close friendship that feels like family and therefore is very intimate, and maybe that relationship hit a snag. And I think most folks would agree the mental health field doesn't really talk as much about friendship relationships as they do intimate partners, but that will be another video. So you can absolutely apply these concepts and tools to close friendships too. So I'm very integrative in conceptualizing and treating couples like all my clients, but I found using emotionally focused therapy, or EFT, not to be confused with the other EFT, which I also use and love, which is tapping. You might see people doing the tapping. This is emotionally focused therapy. And using that as the foundation of couples therapy has been so useful and beautiful across the board with all kinds of diverse folks. And I always love integrating somatic work in there too. So as the therapist in session, I'll notice subtle and unconscious movements such as what eyebrows are doing, mouths, shoulders, hands, jaw, how someone's leaning when they're speaking or receiving somebody speaking to them, change in the color of their face, and always the breath as the nonverbal communication that's going on alongside the words that are flowing between the couple or partners. And then reflecting back to the couple what I notice and asking them to bring awareness there, because we know emotions are physical. So if the physical body is reacting or responding in a way, bringing attention to that and seeing what's underneath that movement or lack thereof can be very useful in emotionally focused therapy. So back to EFT, it's a research-backed form of therapy. People love using it across the board, and I think that's why so many people talk about it and bring it in, because there's also a more manualized approach that you can do step-by-step work with. But it's very humanistic, it's very relational, person-centered, and it's attachment style focused. And that encompasses how we relate and belong in relationship with others. And a lot of people, I think, these days are familiar with attachment styles. And so that comes into play here as the foundation of this therapy as well. And EFT really catalyzes healing by bringing awareness to the spectrum of emotions experienced by each partner, and how each person's identity and role in the relationship is built through the language of emotions. And we all know we can have like a honeymoon period, and then as we settle into our role, we settle into the comfort of the relationship, certain identity aspects will emerge that are based on our attachment style. And then this is expressed through emotions. So EFT also has 3 main stages. As I mentioned, it's very manualized. And then within each 3 stages, there are, or collectively, there are 9 steps that help the partnership progress and create change in that structured way. So you can also kind of measure what's happening and know that you're building upon each step to really have a solid foundation and a change in like growth and communication style. And the work is to really get to know, accept, manage, and create meaning from emotions to create secure attachment in the relationship. The end goal is creating secure attachment. And this work builds security and safety to create intimacy or return to intimacy that might have been lost. And each partner really leans into vulnerability and courage to share all of their emotions, no matter how difficult. And then the other partner will engage communication with them, such as reflecting back, which is an exercise where they express what they heard their partner say. And I'll go into that in a minute. But the whole process is, being witnessed by the therapist, guided by the therapist. And the therapist can help the couple see where communication may be clunky, because when you're so enmeshed in the relationship, it's hard to like pan out and get a bird's eye view. And that's where being in therapy for couples work, regardless of the situation, if it's something brief or if it's a long-term pattern, can be really meaningful. And it's constructive to also have and this is one exercise to practice, but constructive to have each partner use I, me, my statements, as they're encouraged to speak from their own experience and their reality, because each partner is going to have their own take and their own constructed reality of the same situation based on their previous experiences and their core beliefs that are also connected to their emotions. And that's their attachment style, and that's built and learned through childhood experiences often. And sometimes that attachment style that goes into reaction instead of response mode can kind of hijack how they respond to their partner. So having the therapist there to sort of buffer and create pauses and have small reflections throughout the session, and then sometimes just let it flow, can be really meaningful. And some quick info on healthy relationships. So there's another really big, I would say, like pioneers in couples therapy, the Gottmans, the Gottman method. And they believe the two pillars that keep the relationship house standing are trust and commitment. And in EFT, and what I mentioned earlier, and what I really believe is super important as well, our two pillars for sustainable relationships are safety and communication. And safety doesn't have to obviously just mean physical safety. Emotional safety is huge. And that's often what is triggered, feeling unsafe or something going back to an old wound, and then a lack of communication or really garbled communication, clunky communication. So when you have safety and communication along with that trust and that commitment, and commitment is a malleable word, I would say, depending on the type of relationship you're in, then you have a good structure that is very workable to improve the life of your relationship, because it's very much a living thing. And other research has shown that communication inefficiency and communication breakdowns are the leading instigator for fractured intimate partnerships. So most people will come into couples therapy with a very specific problem. Often there will be blame, and usually underneath it, or the catalyst behind it, is something connected to a fracture in communication. So even if they don't realize their communication is broken down, because there's often, again, very little space to pan out from the relationship and see it objectively without judgment or defensiveness in play, it can be brought to their attention by the therapist in a collaborative way. And this is why seeking therapy can be so useful, because you have this compassionate but objective and attentive witness that are also, going to keep everyone on track, holding space for everybody, and also helping you construct really clear goals for therapy, because that can be another really big hurdle in the beginning, is where you think you're coming in as a couple for the same reasons, and then when you sit down and you really start to talk about what's going on, your goals might be different. And so getting clear goals together collaboratively can be really meaningful just at the outset, because then you're a team working on the relationship together. And your therapist, again, can reflect back to you what they're experiencing of you individually and as a unit, and that helps you gain further insight. And that, of course, is the key to making meaningful change and to understand their roots, which goes into the psychodynamic aspect here of that attachment theory of where we learned to respond this way or not respond at all, depending on our attachment style. And then also, of course, therapists that use different kinds of tools can supply you with tools and exercises to do in session and also bring home. So an example in session, you may do a reflection exercise where one partner shares how they're feeling about a particular negative pattern of interaction. So for example, partner one may say, I feel really small and humiliated when we're grocery shopping together and are splitting the bill, and you choose the most expensive items that you know I can't afford, but you can afford them because you earn so much more money than me. But it's so hard and makes me so angry when I have to keep reminding you every time that I can't afford things, and I feel like you never remember, and I feel like you're not listening. So notice there's like the I statements, like I feel, and it might feel a little bit of blame, but it's just what this person's noticing, what they're feeling. And the next, sorry, I just had a thought, like every Erewhon in the city probably has people fighting in the parking lot. But anyway, so back to the scenario. After that, partner one shares what they're feeling about, maybe even a little shame about not making as much money, and they have to keep thinking about how they don't make as much money, and they feel like they're not remembering or listening to them when they're saying they can't afford certain things. So I would ask that partner two, so okay, partner one just shared this. What did you hear partner one just say? And then that person will reflect in their own words, what they heard them say. And if there's a defense up front, they might create an extra meaning or an extra sort of definition of what the energy around that communication was. Like, you're saying that and that's where you can get into it. And it's really good. It can feel a little bit tense, but it's really good because that's where you can see where things are going through a filter that are not quite hitting and landing the right way. So often in the beginning stages of therapy, you can be really surprised what you think you said or what the other person thinks they heard. And that's our ego defenses, and that's that filter. So your therapist can help you work to gain insight through that and create understanding and getting underneath that defense so you can truly hear what your partner said. And then when you really hear them, when that communication is clear, then there's connection and reconnection. And also the partner who expressed the humiliation can be heard more clearly while also experimenting with new ways to improve their communication by learning how their partner best receives what they're saying. So we might use certain words or have a certain kind of tone, and if that triggers the other partner, then that's something we can practice, that we use different approaches so that they can hear us properly, so that it lands better. And it's not assigning blame, it's just working together to figure out the best way to communicate. And each partner takes responsibility, and each partner participates in getting their own insights to their own root causes and their defenses, their coping patterns, their communication styles, even their beliefs about certain topics, like with financial wounding is such a big thing, and also their reactions. And those are often all learned or absorbed from those younger experiences with their families of origin. So a tool to share, a tool that you can use in your intimate partnerships right now, even when there's a rupture or even just tension, is practicing a few verbal prompts to set a collaborative tone. And these prompts can help you move from negative cycles of arguing to more effective, positive cycles of communicating your needs, because often needs are at the center here. It's hitting a wound around needs. So for example, in EFT, a starter prompt may be, when I am upset by you, or when we are not getting along, I feel. And then you identify two layers of feelings. One is a surface feeling, and that might be what your nonverbal cues are signaling, what your facial expression is, your tone, and just the immediate top of mind emotion. And then the second layer, you share a deep feeling, and you would say, and underneath that, I feel, and you identify a core emotion or a root feeling or root energy underneath that top layer. And that top layer often serves as a shield for a more tender feeling underneath. So that might sound a little confusing. So putting that together, a partner's prompt may go something like this. When I am upset by you, I feel so freaking pissed off. And underneath that, I feel invisible. And then you can work with that invisibility, that vulnerable, tender spot underneath. The other partner can then respond, what I heard you say was, and again, repeat back in their own words how they received this information. And you want to keep breathing into your belly to stay grounded. You want to know that this may not be totally smooth right away, that it might be defensive, but that's okay, because when the defenses are out in the open and the therapist is there, you're kind of collecting information, and you keep just using the prompts before sharing, and it can become a new habit of communicating, and it'll help you stay focused on your feelings and continue to work to clarify and reach mutual understanding. And then again, you get back to that connection. So it's not going to be super smooth right away, most likely, but the idea is to practice it, because you're unlearning ways of automatically reacting, and you're replacing those neural pathways and those just sort of the entire physical energy of your emotional body and your physical body, and finding what you really mean, what's underneath everything. And that's where the connection happens. And, also we want to name the glimmers and the positive moments. So for example, when de-escalation is happening and a partner notices, they can say, I just want to say, I'm noticing you de-escalate. I hear you reassuring me. Right now, this makes me feel, and whatever it is, this makes me feel seen. I feel really heard right now. So you want to, it's not complimenting for the sake of complimenting, but you want to genuinely share something that you're noticing, because then that other partner is going to clock that in their brain, and they're going to say, okay, this is a good thing. We're going to do more of this, because they're receiving essentially reward. And you just keep expressing from the I, me, my space, starting the sentences with I feel, or I, me, my experience, whatever it is, and then you reflect back to each other. and it may feel kind of weird, but having the structure and prompts will help you stay on path to build that intimacy because you'll be seeing into each other. So even if you want to tweak it to make it feel more comfortable for you, the idea is that you have this structure in place where you're practicing that beginning prompt, and then you're able to hear what you're saying. I feel, and then you're like, okay, what is my top layer feeling? Okay, what's underneath that? And then you're really getting to know yourself better too. So you could even print these prompts out, write your own, and then you work from home using that worksheet when things are getting a little spicy. And that way you're making this conscious behavioral move to access resources. And that again is neural pathway work. It's pruning old ways of being and creating new pathways. And that's switching your brain into that left hemisphere, that logic, step-by-step approach. And that gives you that structure and that grounding to kind of work on top of it and be more fluid on top of that. And that promotes that responsiveness versus activated reaction. So lastly, about couples therapy, I want to note that it's important for people to know that couples or intimate partners can seek therapy to break up peacefully. It's not always about trying to repair a relationship when you go to couples therapy. It's really a beautiful way to honor the relationship that was, if it's a safe, stable relationship stable enough. And so by coming to couples therapy to break up peacefully, you can find understanding, common ground, collaborate on closure, and then release the relationship with grace. And that can just be a really beautiful way to honor what was and help you move on, because often the most activating aspects of breakups are when there's no closure. So that can help you get authentic closure, I would say. So that is that. Thank you for watching. I hope this helped. And if you're seeking couples therapy, please reach out for a free consultation call. My info is below and on KirstenHearnTherapy.com and on GaiaWoodsTherapy.com website as well. Bye and be well.